So people often ask me, why did I choose Vietnam? Why did I decide to stay here? Why didn't I go to a different country? So today I'm going to briefly touch on this topic with you folks, and I know I've kind of gone over this in some of my other videos, but I wanted to go over a few more points today because I keep getting asked this question. A lot of people message me with a dilemma. They've been offered a remote job and they're trying to decide between Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam. Well, hopefully today I can give you some pointers and help you make a decision, and also let you know why I came here and why I decided to stay here. But firstly, I need to get over this bridge, and I'm going to be a bit out of breath, so I'm not going to talk for about a minute until I get over it. So if you're new to this channel, folks, my name's Chris. I'm from the UK. I've been in Vietnam for, wow, must be over 6 years now. I spent most of my time down here in Saigon in the south. I used to live in Da Nang as well for a little bit. And I'm possibly going to go back up there to live in the near future. Watch this space. So why did I come to Vietnam, and why did I decide to stay here? Well, initially due to a chain of events in the UK 10 or so years ago, involving some car accidents, some injuries, stuff like that. I wasn't able to drive around as much as I used to, so my job would involve me driving a lot, like 1,000 kilometers a week sometimes. And of course, when you got back issues, neck issues, that's not very comfortable, not very nice, pretty miserable. So took a sabbatical leave, a year off to do some traveling, as you do. So China, Thailand, Hong Kong, places like that. Came to the end of my travels and I tossed a coin. It was going to be Taiwan or Da Nang in central Vietnam. I'd heard about Da Nang on the internet. Never been there. And this is like 7 or maybe 8 years ago, so it was much quieter back then. But I tossed heads and I got heads, and heads was for Da Nang, so I headed there. And I wasn't working at this time, but back in those days it was very, very easy to get visas in Vietnam. So you get a 3-month visa and you could renew that. I remember it cost me $15 in Hoi An. You didn't have to leave the country. You used to pay this guy called Mr. Hung to pull up in his S-Class Mercedes, take about 10 passports off a group of people. He'd drive them to Hoi An. Sometimes they come back a bit sandy, but you get your 3-month visa. So those days are gone, and my whole kind of lifestyle is different now. I eventually managed to land a fairly decent job, which gives me some good benefits like 2-year work permit, TRC, health insurance, holidays, all that type of thing. And I found myself down here in Saigon, which I have a love-hate relationship with. And one of the things I hate is the traffic and the noise. One of the things I love is the vibrancy of the city. And it's just a all-round quite interesting place. So most of my vlogs are done on this e-bike, guys. If you're new to the channel again, you might think it's a bit strange, me riding around on an electric bike in Saigon. Well, yeah, that is a bit strange, but I love it. I think it's a great way to get around. And you get to take in a lot of the more interesting sights that maybe you'd miss if you were in a car or on a motorbike. So one of the main difficulties facing you if you're thinking of coming to live in Vietnam at the moment is the visa situation. That still hasn't changed, so you cannot get the 3-month and the 1-year visas like before. You have to have a sponsor in the country, whether that's a spouse, your employer, or you start a business which is going to cost you about 120k in investments. That's the only way you're going to get a long-term visa at the moment. So it kind of sucks if you're working remotely and you fancy yourself setting yourself up in Vietnam. That's going to suck for you because you just can't really do it at the moment, unless you work part-time as perhaps a teacher. So perhaps you can get 10-12 hours teaching English. They may give you a work permit, they should, but they often don't. But that's one way around it. So you could work just on 1 or 2 days a week on the weekends, get your work permit, and then you could do your remote job on the side. Obviously, things like taxation then gets complicated if you want to be 100% legitimate. It's tricky because Vietnam taxes worldwide income, and like most countries, it's a progressive tax rate up to 35%, but the tax rates are very low, and it's one of the highest tax countries. I think it is the highest tax countries actually in the region. It's totally different from places like Singapore and Hong Kong, and you'll get hammered financially through taxation here if you declare everything as you should. What you find is most expats, I guess 90% of them plus, get their employer to pay their tax and insurance on their behalf. So most employers will pay that for their employees, and then you just take the net salary. And of course the reason for that is if you're on a good salary, if you're earning over, say, you know, even like 30,000-40,000 US dollars a year, you're almost touching the 35% tax bracket. So you're going to lose 35% of that to tax plus insurance. So it's going to be close to 40% gone. And unfortunately, you don't get anything. You don't really get anything for that here. You're still going to have to pay for hospitals and schools. If you want a good school, you're going to have to pay. So really, that's one of the negatives of living here. But most employers get around that, and they're able to attract and retain good staff by covering their tax bill for them. I believe Thailand is still fairly easy to get the 3-month visa, and up to a year visa. You can get like an education visa there. You can even study Muay Thai, get a 1-year visa. Most countries like Malaysia as well, Indonesia I believe, I'll have to check. On a Western style passport you can get 3 months, 90 days. So that's probably going to be a better option for you at the moment. So if it was me starting off again, I would almost certainly hit Thailand for probably for a year. But if I really wanted to be in Vietnam, I would closely monitor the visa situation, and I give you updates on my channel, guys, all the time. And then as soon as the longer visas came back, I would then think about jumping across to Vietnam and setting myself up here. So what are the attractions of Vietnam? Well, it's still reasonably cheap to live here, especially once you go outside the major cities. Accommodation is I think overpriced, especially in Saigon. It's much more expensive than Da Nang and Hanoi down here. And I just had a rent increase thrown at me of nearly 30%, which I don't agree with. Ridiculous. There's actually much less foreigners here, so in my opinion, rent should be going down. A lot of empty, vacant apartments, but there we go. Sometimes logic is not commonly seen here. But anyhow, don't be afraid to negotiate your apartment, and don't negotiate in US dollars. Always negotiate in VND, the local currency. Especially now where $1 gets you 24,900. I think up about 10% on the year, so it's quite a substantial dip in the value of VND. And of course a lot of landlords now are really trying to push for US dollar contracts for obvious reasons. But you know, it's Vietnam and you should be paying in local currency, not US dollar. So there we go, folks. A bit of insight from me today. I'm going to sign off now, get myself a coffee, something to eat quick, and head back. Have a great day wherever you are in the world, and hopefully see you in Vietnam soon. Take it easy.